Om Jnanatirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chaksurumitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. So, yesterday I was saying, and we were discussing, that sometimes you have a problem that you don't want to deal with, or you have a problem that you don't even know you have, or you have a problem that you kind of know you have, but in all cases it's so uncomfortable, the problem is so uncomfortable, you don't want to think about it. You remember that discussion? And then I said, if you have a problem and you don't deal with it, where does the problem go? It follows you. It doesn't go away. But you ever have a problem and you just say, I don't want to think about it? So where does the problem go? It doesn't evaporate, that's for sure. Yeah, it follows us. So, what many people do, and I'm sure we've all done, is we push the problem below our conscious level, so we think we don't have a problem. And sometimes, have you ever said when there's a problem, it's not a problem, but it actually is? Don't worry, Chandra Govinda Prabhu, it's not a problem, but it actually is, and I'm denying that it's a problem, and then it comes up. Any of you ever had that experience? Yeah. So, I have a course on forgiveness, and we have an exercise. And I'll tell you the exercise, and if you want to do it now or later, you can. If you have an issue with anyone, it could be resentment or any issue. In this case, it was resentment. So I asked everyone, I said, what does it feel like? And where do you feel it in your body? Like, what does your resentment feel like? Could you give me an analogy? It feels like blank. So we all went into this meditative state, closed our eyes, and like, what does it feel like and where do I feel it? So somebody said, I feel like I have a chain around my neck and it's chained to a pole and I can't move. Somebody said, I feel like I have cement, big block of cement on my shoulders and I'm carrying this around. Many people said, I feel like I am in prison and I threw the key away. I locked the door, I locked myself in prison and I threw the key away. One person said, I feel like I'm drowning in a lake of poison and I created the lake. It's just my perspiration and it's self-created. One person said, for every person I have resentment towards, when I try to get back at them, it's like stabbing myself. And you know the story of Bhishma Dev? And he had arrows in his body. She said, I feel like Bhishma Dev with all these arrows, because I'm stabbing, for every person I hate, I'm stabbing myself. And one of the classic examples, I don't think men can relate to it as well as women. Well, I guess if you've never had a kid, you wouldn't relate to it, but you could understand. I read this on the internet, and one lady said, my resentment feels like I'm in labor, I'm in pain, and I won't let the baby come out. You can say, Hare Krishna. That's a Hare Krishna. Isn't it? So, it wasn't a pleasant exercise because I was asking people to get in touch with something that was... You want to face a feeling like knives in your chest? Of course not. Like you're locked in prison? Of course not. You're carrying around weight on your shoulder, your neck is chained, you don't want to carry that around. Right? Unjust. You didn't deserve it. They did the wrong thing. And a lot of people in the workshop would say, I don't know how to let it go. Some people would say, I don't even want to let it go. I'm here in this workshop maybe to get forced to let it go. I don't want to let it go. And the purpose of that exercise was that you're not able to work through it. You have to confront it. And so one of the things I learned is that those bad feelings that you have, that you don't want to acknowledge, when you allow yourself to feel them, they start to neutralize. Like that's how you get rid of them. You don't get rid by running away. You get rid of them by confronting them, which is not easy. There's a story that I heard from a devotee. This is not from a book. And some of you have heard this story before. If you hate 10 people, you have 10 potatoes with their name. Giorgio. Is that Italian? Giorgio. Paolo. Armando. Gucci. I have to think of all the Italian brands. Yeah. Whatever her name was that you don't like, and you write on the potato. And this is such a simple lesson, but these simple lessons sometimes we just ignore them. We don't consider. So she said, okay, now that you have your potatoes in your bag, what we're going to do for the rest of the week is you're going to hold on to these potatoes. You have to hold on to them 24 hours. So they came on Tuesday with their potatoes. Oh, let's make the story better. She gave the assignment on Friday, and they came with the potatoes on Monday. And you have to carry these potatoes with you till Friday morning, so 4 days, 24/7. So, could you imagine? You have to sleep with them, you have to bathe with them, whatever you do. Go out with your friends, you have this bag of potatoes. And if you have a lot of potatoes, it's going to be heavy. So, of course, it was a burden, and she purposefully meant it to be a burden because she wanted to teach a lesson. And so on Friday, they brought their potatoes and they could put them down. And she made a simple point, but I think this point is so profound. She said, if you hate somebody, then you carry that person with you, and you carry the burden of that hatred, and the pain of that hatred, and the weight of that hatred, the toxicity of that hatred. Because you imagine if some of those potatoes got wet, maybe they started to smell. You have to carry that with you wherever you go. And the worst thing is when we carry it and we don't recognize it. So it's in there, and it's working, and we don't even know, but it comes out. You know, like sometimes you get really upset, and there was nothing really to be upset about, but it's something else that's in there that you have suppressed, and you're carrying it around. So, every painful emotion that we're not recognizing, we're carrying around, and it's working on us, it's having an influence, and at some point it comes out. And you don't like someone or something, or you say the wrong thing, all because of that. Does that make sense? Yes. Yeah. So, it only makes sense to one person. That's not good. Does that make sense to more than one person? Yes. So, now there's research. I only studied this research like 20 years ago when there was practically no research about this. But the connection between resentment and disease, resentment and cancer and other diseases, there's a lot of research now. all the mind-body stuff. But these unprocessed emotions are really unhealthy, because what they found was, if you have resentment, for example, and I think we could say this for many emotions, they said, if you're holding on to resentment, you're not even conscious of it. But what's happening is there's a stress going on subconsciously in your body, because resentment is hatred. So there's just like subtle hatred is going on all the time. And when people let go of their resentment, they let go of that stress that it was creating. And the research is the stress that it creates, and the diseases, and the weakening of the immune system and so forth. So, carrying emotions that are not processed is very unhealthy physically and mentally. So, any questions so far? All right, now, yes?
Yes, I wanted to share, yesterday, I got really upset about our situation. Like, I have very people, and I felt it today that I didn't let myself to feel the situation, that my heart is broken, and till today I cannot let myself cry about that, because I'm feeling upset. So,
You don't know what to do? Go out and cry. You want to do that?
Why are we not letting ourselves to feel it?
Why? Oh, why don't we? Oh, there's many reasons. I can't say specifically for you, but in some way we're afraid, we may be afraid to feel. I don't know if that's an Italian problem. I don't think so.
Italian?
That's not so much an Italian problem, feeling, is it? It might be more of a Eastern European problem than an Italian problem. It could be. It could be cultural. That's like you don't express feeling. It's not your culture. Or maybe you express feeling and your parents say, they shut you down. Doesn't matter how you feel. Who cares how you feel? It could be that. Or, as I was saying before, it could be that I don't want to feel it because it's painful, or I don't want to acknowledge it. Like, how many of you want to acknowledge that you're a resentful person? Anybody? No. So to acknowledge the resentment, the emotion of resentment, is to acknowledge I have resentment. So that's painful. That's a lot of times we don't acknowledge the feeling because our false ego blocks it. No, I'm not a resentful person. So I'm not feeling resentment. In some way, if you're afraid to feel, some way you don't feel, you're afraid. There's some fear there that this feeling it's bad, or it's harmful, or I can't handle it, or whatever. I'm afraid of it. What do you think?
To make people uncomfortable.
Yeah. Okay. That's a self-care. That borders into self-care. Yeah. You want to say something?
I think we need to be also, when it comes down to resentment or deep feeling or introspection, and you have to process your feelings, and good or bad. So I think it's less difficult for people from other countries. And all I want to say is that probably we need a coach, or we need at least a culture or philosophy that teaches us how to process that. Otherwise we don't know how to do it. We don't know how to do it, so we're scared of the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
We might not, the thing is with Kuvera also, the other day we were discussing, you might identify, you don't know that your thoughts are not you, you don't know that your mind is not you, so you don't even know how to process because you don't know that it's something you could process. Because nobody ever told you that you are not your feelings, your thoughts.
Yeah. Matura, were you at did you go to the workshop on forgiveness in Alachua? That one I did like 20 years ago?
No, I wasn't at that.
I thought you were there.
She's saying there's always a payoff why we don't want to look at something.
Mm-hmm.
There's always a payoff. And a lot of times we don't realize it's a subtle thing that's going on. Something I'm reflecting on today, because this is the work I'm doing, do coaching, transformation coaching, I'm always coaching myself, look at what's happening. So I'm actually processing right now shame. And I realize I haven't wanted to deal with shame. And I'm sitting with why don't I want to deal with it. Because if I deal with it and I get through it, I think one of the fears is that I may make a similar mistake and have to feel that again. And feel shame and feeling the failure. The shame is about feeling like a failure in life, and feeling a failure with how people are judging me, which is, of course, I've asked people, are you feeling this way? And they're like, oh, I don't think that about you. Oh, okay, so I'm making this up. So, anyway, that was just something I'm reflecting on today, that I think something we may not want to face the feeling, because I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to feel that again.
Yeah.
But we're harboring it, so it's there. We are feeling it. We're going to feel it. And as soon as something pokes us in a certain way, then we're going to feel that shame or that anger or that resentment or whatever it is, unless we do work through the process.
The mantra is, the way out of it is through it. And so intuitively, the way out of it is around it. Isn't it? Like, how am I going to deal with this painful emotion? I'll try to jump over it, dig a hole under it, take a detour around it. Anything except deal with it head on. And so if you learn nothing else from this session, this is the most important thing. The way through any difficulty and the way through any painful emotion is through it.
And I'm also just thinking when we do go through it, then we get realization.
Yeah, exactly.
And then that realization we come into the subject place and we realize, oh, I don't need to have that type of reaction when something like this happens again.
Yeah. Okay, this is a very good point. Have you ever felt guilty before? Well, yeah, of course, the answer is yes. Why do you think you felt guilty? Why did that emotion come up? Guilt or shame? Why did it come up?
I made a mistake.
Yeah. You acted against your values, or what you knew was right, or what you wanted to do. And shame also is similar. So, what is the guilt? Sham Govinda, what is the guilt teaching you?
I want to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Yeah. So the guilt is actually good.
Yeah.
So, if you didn't have values, you wouldn't feel guilty. You know, it's like some people, some criminals turn their emotions off so they can perform crimes and hurt people and not feel anything, because if they felt, they couldn't do it. So when you feel guilty, it's a horrible feeling, but if you don't go through it, you can't learn what the guilt is saying. If you just try to deny it, the guilt is saying you just did something that goes against your values, and if you do it again, you're going to feel like this again, and this is a horrible feeling. And if you go through it and allow yourself to feel that guilt, the guilt feels so bad that you'll feel like, I never want to do that again because I never want to feel that way again. Whereas if you suppress the feeling, you can't do that because you just pretend there's no guilt. And you can't self-correct. Yes? That makes sense? So, you could say, oh, guilt, I don't like it, it's bad, but it's actually good. What if guilt was not an emotion? There was no such thing as guilt or shame. That would be weird, don't you think? Like, what did you do today, Prabhu? I basically slept. How do you feel? Whatever, it's cool. It's just chilling, What else did you do? Oh, I had like 4 pizzas and a gallon of ice cream. I was like, yeah, I'm chilling. It's all good. Normally if you did that, you'd reflect, that wasn't good. I wasted my day. It's unhealthy and so forth. I feel guilty. That's good. Self-correction. Yes.
What I wanted to add to what Prabhu said is that the problem starts that even we call some emotions good and some emotions bad, which actually there are pleasant emotions and there are unpleasant emotions. Difficult. And all the emotions are necessary, actually all of them are good.
Yeah.
We just don't want to feel unpleasant, that's why we
Yeah, exactly. Maternath, there's a lady, and she said something. She said, shame is good, because if you're ashamed of doing something, you won't do it again. So she said, shame is like guilt. It's a sign that you want to correct, and you recognize you made a mistake. It could be. It could have another aspect to it, but that's one aspect, positive aspect. Have you ever done something you shouldn't have done and desperately tried not to feel it? Yes? Yeah. Okay, I want to help you with this. This is something I realize that can be very, very helpful. If you do something you shouldn't have done, obviously you know you shouldn't have done it, and obviously you don't want to repeat it. But the feeling of guilt it's such a horrible feeling, you don't want to feel it. But if you just ask yourself this question when you're in that situation, you ask yourself,